Hello there, YouTube. I've been wanting to make videos all week, but I keep having migraines. Far too many migraines. Thankfully, I haven't had one this morning, and I didn't have one on Monday, but that was it. It's been a rough week or so. I had 6 days with migraines in a row. One day without. Next day, I had a migraine. One day without. So hopefully, I'm coming out the other end. Now, naturally, I wanted to make videos with the American election coming up, and I wasn't able to do it. But now that the election results are in, we know that Donald Trump has won the election. There are the same people making the same statements. Now that they're afraid and they live in fascist America and that they're going to have to flee the country and all this stuff. And I need to make this statement. I was going to make it beforehand because it doesn't matter who won. There would have been people making these kinds of bullshit claims. But they are exactly that, bullshit claims. First of all, Trump is not going to put anyone in a fucking camp. He's not Hitler. Grow up. There are no death camps. There is no rounding up of people. There are not going to be roving bands of Republicans with guns going from door to door shooting people. Stop it. Grow up and get over yourselves. Stop with the ridiculous rhetoric. It makes you look like an idiot. And it means that if any of this extremism ever did take over again, no one would believe you because you cry wolf every bloody election. One of the most important things that needs to be said is that whoever won in this election, it would not have made that much of a difference to your life. If you're an American and Harris had won this election, it would have been exactly the same as the last 3 years. Because she's been in power for the last 3.5 years. I mean, do we honestly believe that Sleepy Joe, the dementia puppet, was actually in power? No, of course not. She was effectively in power for at least the last 2 years. And she was the second in command. So it's not as if, even if Joe was doing his stuff, it's not as if she had no say, as if she couldn't manipulate the policies and make at least some changes. She has power there. And for those who are terrified of a Trump presidency, unless you're a child, you already remember living through a Trump presidency. You've already had 4 years of it, and he didn't grind away your rights completely. He didn't go and round up everyone and send them off to the gulag. That didn't happen. It didn't happen because you're all insane, and you need to stop it. Either party would have run a perfectly reasonable and capable America. What would have happened is individual small policies would have changed. And some of them would have been somewhat fascistic. There are elements of fascism that are creeping in to specifically the left of politics at the moment. And those elements are censorship, which is masquerading as hate speech laws, control over the media, and control over the universities. And that's being used to alter the way you think and the way you express yourself by making it so that it is socially and financially dangerous to disagree with the establishment. The fact that they sought to arrest and try Trump for Mickey Mouse crimes is an example of fascism. It's the kind of thing a banana republic would do, where they would take their political rival and find an excuse to put them in prison, and failing that, try to kill them. This is what the Democrats did to Trump, and this is exactly the kind of stuff we see coming out of somewhere like Russia, where if you are a political rival to Putin, you will find yourself arrested, and then you'll miraculously die 6 months later in the prison cell of unknown causes. And that happens all the time in genuine fascist countries. So America is teetering on that. There are elements that would make you go, okay, we need to panic here. And I would be much more panicked with a Harris government. But even still, even with a Harris government, and they have been pushing censorship, they've been pushing control over the media, there are people who should be worried if Harris had won. Like, Trump would almost certainly be arrested again and would end up in prison. Elon Musk would almost certainly end up in prison. Not for actually doing a crime, but because he's a powerful, rich man with a large platform who went against the establishment. They would have found a reason to put him in prison. Those people should panic. There will be people arrested for no good reason, and there will be a crackdown on dissenting speech. That is what would have happened. And do you know how we know that's what would happen? Because it's happened here in my country. When Labour won the election here, there were massive protests, there were riots, there was huge issues across pretty much every town, every city in Britain. And people were arrested very, very quickly just for standing around, just for being near the protests, just for being near a riot. People were arrested for posting something on Facebook that disagreed with or was critical of the government. It's one of the reasons I post so little on social media now, and why these videos are so few and far between. Because criticising the Labour government in this country is actually dangerous. It could land you in a prison cell. That's fascism. That's genuine fascism. But is it fascism to the same degree? I sit here right now, months into a Labour government, and I still have a roof over my head. I still have free access to media. I can still go to a library and I can take out almost every book. I can still post almost anything to YouTube or run my mouth in my Discord server. I can still send emails backwards and forwards. I can still talk publicly. If I was a public figure, I would have to be more careful. Because if you reach more people, the government pays more attention to you. It's not good. It is definitely not a good situation. But to claim that this is anything close to what it would have been like in fascist countries when fascism was actually in power, when the likes of Italy and Spain and the obvious Germany and Russia have had their fascist governments overseeing what the people can say and do, and dragging them down to where they have to pretend to agree with all these things just to save face. Because if you do not say what the government wants, you'll be dragged off. That's a very different environment. When you're in China, you have to be positive towards the Chinese government. You can't be negative. You can't be seen to be dissenting, or they will crack down. They will destroy your livelihood. They'll destroy your ability to live, your ability to move, your ability to open businesses. Everything will be restricted to the point where you won't even be able to get on a high-speed train. You'll have to get really slow coaches because your social credit score won't allow you to have access to basic things. Banks will turn you away. Go to somewhere even worse, like North Korea. If your house burns down, if your house is on fire, and you run in to save your family before you run in to save the portrait of the North Korean leader hanging on your wall, if you don't save that photo first, that's treason. You'll be put to death. Yes, seriously, that's how insane some of these countries are. If you're in Iran or Afghanistan now, and you're a woman, and you flee a burning building, but you don't have your face and your hair covered up, you will be beaten, sent to prison, and left to die, because showing your face without having the correct cloth wrapped around you because of your insane Sky Daddy's rules is more of a crime than someone burning to death in a building. That's fascism. This is what we've got to consider. If you express your sexuality in most of the Middle East, you will be found, arrested, either sentenced to life imprisonment under extremely harsh conditions, or you'll just be beaten, taken to the top of a building, and thrown to your death. That's fascism. There's no one doing that in America or Europe or the UK or any other Western country. It doesn't matter who wins. No one is going to take a gay person or a trans person or anything like that and throw them off a building for being whatever it is they are. Because, oh, well, Trump is now in office, so now we get to kill all the trans people. That doesn't actually happen. Anyone who believes that is a moron. No one is even saying these kinds of things. No one would dream of saying these kinds of things. The only people who say it are people who want to push propaganda to make you afraid of the bad orange man. It's not happening. What I will say is that the extremism isn't in the actions, it's in the perceptions, and it's in the media. The media in America is especially bad for pushing this whirlwind of extreme fear, this propagandized nonsense, where they will tell you that Donald Trump has done this, Donald Trump has done that. You know, they will take a clip out of context and make out as though he said something he didn't say, or that he thinks something he doesn't think. The amount of people who will still claim, even now, even after he's won the fucking election, that Donald Trump was for a federal ban on abortion, when he explicitly said that he wasn't. That he was for this Project 2025 think tank policies. These policies that have been largely spread by Democrat agitators, basically, when he's openly said he has nothing to do with it. He's not involved in that. That's a think tank publishing ideas they want to do. Donald Trump doesn't want to do any of those things. He's got his own policies, which he's made very clear many, many times. Silly things like when he said that not electing him would lead to a bloodbath in the auto industry, that they would cut out the words "the auto industry" and make out as if he's making a call to violence. These ridiculous statements that are nothing more than stirring the pot. It is nothing more than people desperately trying to push extremism, to push hatred, so that people get more and more divided. Because in reality, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are actually not that different. They are surprisingly similar. When you look at the wider range of policies, they agree on a lot of things, because fundamentally, they agree on America. They disagree on a few details, but they still want America. They want to focus on that. They want to make that the way they see it. And generally speaking, every American politician wants to have their idea of liberty and freedom, their idea of a prosperous nation. They want their idea of protecting the American people. And whilst they'll disagree on a few things, they're not going to fundamentally change their way of life. No one's going to do anything ridiculous like suddenly pass Sharia law or outlaw the reading of the Bible. No one's going to do anything like that. No one's going to suddenly change things so that you could kill gay people for the crime of being gay. Like, that's not going to happen. No one's going to pass free speech laws that's going to make it so that you can be arrested and put to trial and death for disagreeing with the government, even when the Harris campaign have been pushing such extremes that the hate speech laws look like they're going that way. No one's going to do that. Not yet, anyway. That doesn't mean you don't have some level of vigilance. You've got to be very careful, because when it comes to these kind of things, electing one group in, it's a step and another step and another step before you reach the point where those things will happen, as proven by Germany. Remember, Hitler was elected originally. It doesn't take much for a party to start pushing for things to be cultural, then pushing for them to be fined offences, or making it so it's difficult for you to do things without there being severe consequences before it then becomes illegal. Speech laws, especially, are some of the easiest ones to see go in that direction, as we've seen in my country. There are blasphemy laws in this country. There are and I genuinely do mean that as well. Like, it is treated like blasphemy. You cannot say things that offend people. If I was to describe the Islamic faith and describe it honestly, I could be arrested for it. If I was to describe the reality of biological gender, I could be arrested for it. If I was to discuss the political system and how corrupt the first past the post system is for keeping people in power when they don't deserve it, I could be arrested for it. If I was to discuss the reality of obesity, even as a fat man, if I was to discuss that and describe how bad it is for your health, I could be arrested for it, because that's considered fat phobia. There are ridiculous things now that are being put forward, and even still, whilst I can be, the appetite's not really there for it. The UK is basically a fascist state at this point, but it's not really. And that's the thing you need to keep in mind, is that the Western nations, still have a long way to go before they devolve, and I would like to hope that people have the ability to look at the world objectively and realise that actually it's just not that bad. It's never going to be that bad. And I want to make sure that's out there, because the future videos I'm going to be making, the videos that I intend to put out where I say this is fascistic and this is ridiculous and blah 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 for various different policies, where I highlight different parties and different political groups and say what they're doing is disgusting and it's borderline fascist. I want to make sure that people realise that while I say that intellectually, yes, it follows the principles of fascism, which is control of the populace through threats of restricting rights and violence. That is fascism. Those things do exist in Western politics. They do. But not everything you disagree with is fascism. Fascism has an actual meaning, which I've explained, because everyone wants to throw that word around now. The amount of times Donald Trump is referred to as a fascist because he passes a law that the people actively want. It's just so stupid. But whilst I'm going to make those claims, I want it to be very clear that we have it good in the West. Better than anywhere else and anyone else in history has ever had. When I've been writing my fantasy world, one of the criticisms that I've heard a lot of fantasy authors get is if you include racism or homophobia, or sexism, but racism and homophobia especially, in your fantasy setting. If you have nations where being gay is a crime, or if you have nations where there's heavy racial biases, racism, race-based slavery, that kind of thing, it is very much criticised because this is a fantasy world. Why is your fantasy so horrible? Why is the fantasy world you've built, the one that you've decided to create in your head, emblematic of the worst parts of our history? And my response to that is because it needs to be human nature. Otherwise, it's not going to have any level of verisimilitude. It's not going to feel real. You're not going to have any immersion because it doesn't feel like human. Like humans live here. Humanity is like this. This isn't historical. It's not, oh, that's what it was like back then. No, that's what it's like now. Hatred towards gay people, racism, sexism, divides where people will kill people for stupid identity labels. That is the majority of the world right now. If you spend time anywhere in Africa, the Middle East, China, a lot of Eastern Asia, parts of South America, basically, if you're anywhere that isn't Western Europe, North America, above the Mexican border, Australia, New Zealand. If you're anywhere else, these things still exist. Even very modernized nations like Japan has extremely bad racism. Whole businesses are segregated. signs are placed in windows, Japanese only, no foreigners. Right? That's because they are deeply, deeply culturally racist. And that's not unusual. That is the same across the world. Most of the Middle East and huge swathes of Africa, parts of Asia, have it be illegal to be gay. You will be punished. In many countries, you'll be put to death. It will be illegal for you to be an atheist. It is illegal for women to have rights in a lot of these places. And I don't mean the right to murder your child 3 days before you give birth to it. That's not a right. That's being disgusting. That's being a baby murderer. Right? We can debate, whether or not abortion is right for someone in the first few weeks, while it's still a bundle of cells. That might be a debatable issue. I disagree with that personally. I believe that is still a baby, but you can at least have an argument there. You can have an intellectual discussion where you claim, well, that's not yet a baby. So before it becomes a baby, let's consider whether or not that will destroy the lives of the people involved and bringing a new life into a world where they can't be cared for, where there's not the resources for them. That's cruel. I can see the arguments even if I disagree with them. But it's this, you can abort up to the day of birth, which is what's being pushed in America. No. If that is a fully formed baby, that if we were to do a cesarean section right now, that would live perfectly capable outside of the mother. If you decide to scramble its brains right now because it's not left the mother yet, that's murder. But let's move away from that issue. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about actual rights, like the right to own property, the right to be seen in public, the right to have a voice, the right to not have to be escorted by a male member of your family to leave the premises. These kinds of things. These are the rights women don't have across huge parts of the world. I have always been an active, outspoken anti-feminist because the feminist movement is a misandrist hate movement. It's a movement by women who hate men in the West. If you leave the Western nations, feminism has a lot still to do. There is not equal rights for women in the world. Huge, huge sections of the world just do not have that. So in my fantasy world, most nations don't have equal rights. They don't have equal rights for women. They don't have equal rights for gay people. They don't have equal rights for foreigners. They have deep biases and deep prejudices because that's human nature. Clearly. Because it's not even historical. It happens today. It is a rare nation where you can be who you want to be and not face prejudice. It's why groups like Queers for Palestine is so absolutely ridiculous. Queers for the nation that would kill you for being queer. That's clever. Well done there. Now, this is just the message I wanted to get out there. I've rambled a little bit. I've gone off topic because I had so many different video ideas I wanted to make over the last week. So many different topics I wanted to discuss. So forgive me for the rambling nature. But what I really wanted to say, the most important thing I wanted to say for Americans listening right now, is that it doesn't matter what happened in your election. Fascism isn't coming to America. It never was. There may have been some small restrictions, some changes you don't like, some laws you don't appreciate. There may be a few things that annoy you. But it was never going to go the way you thought. Now, it is not fascism for the new Trump government to say that you're not allowed to teach 80-year-old children the ridiculous queer gender-denying philosophy that has become the norm for the woke people out there. Saying that, no, you're not allowed to indoctrinate children into that. That's not fascism. Yes, it's a restriction on your rights. But it's not fascism. It's a restriction on degeneracy. And if you are honest with yourself, you will know why. And the same thing would go the other way. If the Harris campaign had come in and they passed hate speech laws that restricted your ability to use pronouns in the way they should be used. That's not fascism. That is a silly quirk of language use, and largely unimportant. I would still hate it and argue against it because it's stupid, and it is fascistic in its intent, and it could lead to worse. But unless you're literally being beaten to death and shot for using the wrong pronoun, it's not a big deal. These are the kind of things I want to get across. In order for people to understand what everyone else wants in this world, we need to stop reducing every single person on any political side to I agree with them or literally Hitler. There is a middle ground. Can we please get back to it? Anyway, that's what I want to say on that. I'll have more to say in future videos, and I hope to be able to make some more videos in the near future. I've just been very, very unwell. This has been my rambling, unscripted thoughts following the election of Donald J. Trump for President of the United States in 2024. And even though I am quite left-wing, this was a good day. I'm glad that Trump was elected, because I do think he was by far the better candidate. And I'm going to explain why, as a left-wing socialist, and I am a left-wing socialist. You may not realise that if the only term you've heard socialism compared to is communism or fascism. It's neither of those things. But that aside, as a left-wing socialist, I wanted Trump to win because Trump was the best choice. And I will explain that in a future video because I really do need to go into why socialism needs to stop being used as the boogeyman word. It needs to stop being used as if it's the name of Lord Voldemort. It is just a political system, and I will go into some depth, and hopefully, now that we have got rid of the woke progressives in America, some more left-wing perspectives, like a proper left-wing socialist movement, could rise up to challenge the Republicans, and we could have a decent debate. That's my hope, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this is entertaining. I'll have a few more videos up soon. I want to do some videos around Booktube. I've had some really interesting discussions in the comment section on my my extremist politics in Booktube video, which seems to have garnered more views recently. I do want to make a follow-up to that because it's a 3-year-old video, and I've got some more things to say. But hopefully I can get that video out. It just depends on how my health is doing. It's been rough the last few weeks. But I'll see you then. I'll see you as soon as I'm able. Until then, bye.